Hello, everybody. Welcome from sunny Florida. Hope everyone's doing well. Sorry again that I'm not in class. Hope you enjoyed your free period on Tuesday. You're now listening to this hopefully on Thursday morning. And we're going to do a quick screencast. I'm going to do three things with you here in this quick video. First one, I want to very quickly just kind of finish the topic we left off with in class on Monday about Kol Isha, when there is more than one voice. We will leave one little piece of that for a live conversation when I'm back in class on Monday, but we will finish up for the most part. Then, totally moving on to the next topic within Kol Isha, I want to just show you the introductory source to the next main discussion we're going to have about Kol Isha in other scenarios like non-live electronic type format scenarios. Again, classic scenario is on a radio or a record player, if you even know what that is. Perhaps today on MP3 files and so on. And then I'm going to leave you, which I'm going to ask you to do for the remainder of your class, which I mentioned in class on Monday. Just the assignment I want you to work on, B'chavrusa, is a Gemara that I mentioned that I learned over vacation, which I think relates to one of the conversations we had previously before vacation. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to read you the Gemara and kind of get you started. So if we just take a look, you have in your source book, we read this last time, source 9. Just to quickly review, the Gemara here clearly is assuming that Kol Isha is no different when there's a group of women. Again, it was a little strange circumstance this Gemara Sota is referring to, which again the Gemara said, Rav Yosef says, Zimri Gavi v'Aninashi, that men are singing and women are doing some kind of inappropriate response to that song. The Gemara calls that a pritzus. The flip side, Zimri Nashi v'Ani Gavri, where the women are doing the singing and the men are doing this inappropriate response. So that the Gemara calls Ke'esh b'Noares, like fire to flax, which implies the Mefarshim explain to be worse. So the Gemara asks, Lamai nafka mina, what's the difference? Why give two different descriptions for these actions if they're both prohibited? So the Gemara says, and this is a complicated issue which we started talking about, levatule ha mikame ha, right? That if for some reason the person who is in the scenario has the ability to stop these people from doing one of these two actions, right? The old saying, Rabbi, you pick which of the two Averos I should stop, and I'll stop one, but I won't stop both. Again, that's a complicated issue, but here, certainly if you're in the position for whatever reason to be able to stop one and not the other, so the Gemara gives a more harsh description to when the women are singing, so that you should get that one stopped first. But clearly they're both prohibited. Again, Ricky in class had a good insight as to perhaps a different understanding why this one is more... this one is worse, but again, regardless of the fact, clearly it's prohibited despite the fact that we are talking about a group of women, the Nashi in plural. So clearly the Gemara there is assuming that a group of women is no different. If you take a look at the next source in Sefer Halichos Bas Yisrael, who we've mentioned the Sefer before, he quotes from Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, talking clearly in Eretz Yisrael, as you'll see, Shamati me'agon Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Shemin din abanos hanosos b'mahalach tiyul ba'otobus. Right, the halacha is that girls who are traveling on a bus, on a trip, on a tiyul, on a bus, lihimaneya milahachshil es hanahag. They should be careful from causing the nahag, the driver, to be machshil, to stumble, b'shmias kol shira shalahen, by hearing their singing. So women on the bus, girls on the bus should not be singing. Clearly this is in Israel where the driver is Jewish. If you remember before vacation we talked about that. If you were on, again, when we take our trips Muncie tours, that would also be Jewish. That would be the same thing. Every so often we have a different company where maybe it's not a Jew, so if that's not the case, then that would be okay. But the point is, if it is a Jewish driver, which is the assumption here, then it is problematic, despite the fact that it is clearly a group, and in this case it sounds like a big group, a whole group of people on a bus. So clearly, again, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is assuming that there's no difference, one woman, 10 women, more than 10 women, and so on. He happens to mention an idea which we will talk more about in class. I'll just show you quickly. He says, "V'lo shayach lomar shatarid ba'avodaso." ve'eno shomeya v'nehena mishiras. Maybe you'll want to say that there is the concept which we will talk about. In fact, some of you asked about that. This is the kula sometimes for videographers or even perhaps people to create Jewish music of women. There's the idea of tarid ba'avodaso. This is a concept that comes up in a number of areas of halacha that we'll see. That if a person is preoccupied with his avoda, his work, we don't have to worry that his mind is going to drift into inappropriate places. And therefore, again, in other circumstances, we might say that it is okay for a man to be a videographer or some other kinds of examples we'll talk about. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, don't say that here. Don't say here that this bus driver is so preoccupied with his job that should be a reason to okay this case of women singing on the bus. Right? Why? And don't say he's not going to hear it and listen, because we all know that everybody, even men who are not good at doing two things at once, they are able to drive and listen to music and enjoy the music at the same time. Right? Most people often do that. So the fact that he is busy working, in this case, will not help us, because that's not going to prevent him in any way from not focusing on the music. He'll be able to focus on the music as well. So again, these two sources clearly imply or state clearly that Kol Isha is just as problematic even when there's a group of women. And we'll leave it at that. This is really the end of the classic sources that I have to share with you. We'll talk in class next time a little bit of just some current poskim, again, of certain of other current Rebbeim who I can tell you, from what I've heard, but not that anything that is written in Sefer, and we will conclude this in class. Okay, break, start again. Just to introduce, because this is the rest of this conversation really will take us 5 minutes on Monday. Then we're going to jump into a bigger topic, which will take us a few classes. So I just want to get the conversation started. Right? Again, the question is, why should you think even that singing on the radio or an MP3 or whatever might be different? Right? So this really starts based in a Gemara here in Gemara Maseches Sota. And the Gemara quotes one line, says one thing, and then Tosfos is going to ask a question on our Gemara from a different Gemara. And we'll see again, right now this Gemara is not at all talking about Kol Isha. We'll see in class how the application of this could come to Kol Isha. But the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Ein Yitzhahara Sholet Ela B'ma She'ein Avroos. Right, the double negatives, Ein and Ella. So basically that means that the Yitzhahara is Sholet only Rak, right? Ein Ella often is the equivalent in Hebrew of Rak. Yitzhahara is only Sholet with that which you can see, right? Which presumably means that a person can't have inappropriate thoughts about something he has not seen, right? I guess it's a little bit of common sense. What could you think about if you haven't seen it? That's what the Gemara says. Tosfos says, wait a minute. We have a Gemara elsewhere that says, presumably, something different, or the opposite. Gemiri, this is just the Divrei HaMatchil of the Tosfos, right, from right here. Makshinan, it's a kasha, a question, from Perek Ein Dorshan, the Gemara in Chagiga, says, Amar Arayos, when it comes to Arayos, the forbidden relationships, Bein B'fanav, Bein Shalo B'fanav, whether it is in front of you or not, Nafish Yitzrayu. The Yitzhahara will be able to take you over. And therefore it sounds just the opposite. Here it sounds like the Yitzhahara is only sholet with that which you can see. And here it sounds like whether you see it or not, the Yitzhahara can be sholet over you. So that's a question. Tosfos says we have a stira, a contradiction between two Gemaras, that which the Gemara says in Sota and that which it sounds like it says in Chagiga. And then the Gemara answers, and with this we'll end this portion. The Gemara answers, no, I'm sorry, not the Gemara, Tosfos answers, Velo Kasha, it's not a problem. Actually, interesting language of Tosfos, not a language Tosfos often uses. Velo Kasha Midi, it's not a question at all, right? Which is, again, not the typical language of Tosfos, right? He's clearly not bothered by the question. The Hasam, because over there, what's over there, again, I didn't make this point before, this is a Tosfos in Maseches Sota, right, that's where it's found, quoting a Gemara in Chagiga over here, So when he says over there, he's referring to over there in Chagiga. It means Hachi Perusho. Hey pay. Hachi. Excuse my bad handwriting. My actual handwriting isn't much better. But on the computer it certainly isn't. Hachi Perusho. Me'achar Shara'a Ha'erva Pa'amachas Shuv Mahar Achareha La'olam. Afiyu Shalo B'fanaha. So what this Gemara of Chagiga means is, when it says that the Yetzer Hara is sholit, whether it's in front of you or not, it means that once you have seen the erva, once you've been exposed to it, even once, pa'amachas, shuv mahar acharel olam, you'll still be able to, and the Yetzer Hara will cause you to think about it afterwards, afilu shalo befaneha, even if the erva, the arayos, is no longer in front of you. And therefore the Gemara is not really any contradiction to what we said before. In fact, they're both really saying the same thing. That means the Yetzer Hara is only sholit by what you can see. That's what this Gemara means. And this Gemara means the same thing. It's just once you have seen something, the Yetzer Hara will be sholit, or can be sholit on you. Again, no mention here about Kol Isha. This is just talking about the power of the Yetzer Hara. And again, you can obviously think out loud what the ramifications are here for Kol Isha, but we will leave that to our live conversation in class. Okay, so now part 3. Okay, but again, I'm going to ask you to do most of the work here. Again, we had a conversation, just to set the stage a little bit, we had a conversation in class prior to vacation about the issue of Kol Isha. Is it an Isur D'Oraisa or an Isur D'Rabbanan? And for the sake of trying to have you really learn this, I'm not going to review the logic we presented for those opinions. You're welcome to go check your notes. But that was a machlokas haposkim. Whether or not it's D'Oraisa or D'Rabbanan, we said we assume it's D'Rabbanan, but nevertheless it's a machlokas. So I found here this Gemara in Shabbos. I apologize to get it here. I didn't tell you where this is. This is in Shabbos. Let's just type it in here for you quickly. This is in Shabbos. Daf Kuf Nun Aleph, Amud Aleph, 151a. Actually, I believe it's Kuf Nun Amud Aleph, 150a. And the Gemara here is having a conversation which is rather fascinating, a Shas conversation about the concept of thoughts and whether or not thoughts are the equivalent of speech. What the Gemara calls hirhur kedibur. Is thinking something like saying it, which has many, many ramifications, right? What would happen if you were to just open a siddur and read the words? Would that be equivalent to davening and so on? So there are many, many ramifications. We're not going to get caught in that. All I'm going to try to do for you here in a basic way is to literally read you the Gemara. I don't want to impact your thought process. I would like you, the question, what you're going to have to try to come up with your chavrusa in the remaining time for the class. At this point, the video has lasted 13 minutes, so it will probably take us another 2 minutes or so to read through the Gemara. So that should leave you at least 15 minutes, and you'll still get out early to converse with your chavrusa. How does this Gemara impact the conversation we had? Does it support or not support, or maybe a little bit of both, depending which lines of the Gemara you read, the thought process we had in saying Kol Isha should be a D'Oraisa or a D'Rabbanan? Again, I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to give the whole story away. But in any event, the Gemara says as follows. I'm actually going to look at the next slide. I hope this does not confuse anybody, but I gave you, normally I would put this up on the board. Since I'm not here, this is my board. The Gemara here says as follows. We're going to read the conversation before. The Gemara seemed to imply that Rabbi Yochanan holds that hirhur is lav kedibur dami, right? That it's not like dimur dami. So the Gemara asks the question: Mi amar Rabbi Yochanan? Is it true that Rabbi Yochanan holds dibur aser, that in a certain context dibur is not allowed, but hirhur is mutter, meaning hirhur is not like dibur, right? Alma hirhur lav kedibur dami, right? Which sounds like Rabbi Yochanan holds that hirhur is not like dibur. Not the equivalent of speech. Is that really true that he holds that? We have another quote from Rabbi Yochanan that sounds the opposite. B'chol makom muter laharher. Normally, in any case, you're allowed to think Torah thoughts. In all cases, chutz mi beis hamer, chutz mi beis hakisa, except for in the bathhouse, in the bathroom, right? And it sounds like there, why not? Normally you're allowed to, but when you're in the bathroom, your thinking is like speaking, it sounds like, and that's why you're not allowed to think Torah thoughts in the bathroom. It sounds like the reason is because it is hirhor kedibur, hence this arrow. This Gemara seems to think that sounds to say that Rabbi Yochanan holds hirhor is kedibur dami, and that's a question again based on the Gemara, which we did not learn previously, made it sound like he held it is not kedibur. To which the Gemara says, no, shiny hasam over there, it's different. We had this language in the last Gemara we took a look at. Dibayina vayam machanecha kadosh v'leika. No, bathroom is a special case. Torah has to be machanecha kadosh, and the bathroom is not a place of kedusha, and that is why you can't say it there. But again, it has nothing to do with hirhor kedibur or not. We could still assume that Rabbi Yochanan holds that hirhor is kedibur dami. Okay. Then the Gemara says, wait a minute. Okay. Hachanami, here we have our pasuk, and this is, again, I don't want to give it away, but this is where I think the piece lies that connects to our topic. Hachanami ksev, here in this pasuk, same pasuk at the end of the pasuk, Vayachem Anacha Kadosh. I apologize, I didn't give it to you exact location, but you have it in your notes from before our vacation. That's all I'll tell you in Dvarim Perek Tes Vav, where it says V'lo yira b'cha ervas davar. Right, this is the pasuk we quoted together. Right, V'lo yira b'cha ervas davar. I don't even want to translate completely that pasuk lest I push you in the wrong direction. But basically, erva should not be appearing from within you. And the translation of the word V'lo yira b'cha ervas davar, from the word davar, not just a thing, but like dibur, right? Which would imply that lo yira b'cha ervas davar, that the pasuk is teaching us that it is only dibur that is aser, not hirhor itself. And again, which could come back to again tell us that it sounds like hirhor is lav kedibur dami. I think for the purposes, I don't really want you to get too involved in the questions and back and forth, but I think we said enough that could help. At least all I'm looking for you now to do is to try to support the conversation. Again, I'm being a little vague because I don't want to give it all away, but to support the conversation we had in that machlokas about is kol ish and iser d'oraisa and iser d'rabanan from one or two of the statements that we read here in the Gemara. Everyone have a good time. This was 18 minutes. That gives you 10 or minutes or so to work with your chavrusa. And if I would ask each group together to email me the response, do the best that you can. If you don't get it right, you can then confer with one of your other chavrusos. But if everyone could take a couple minutes and try to figure it out, and have one group send me an email, at some point now before class is over, that would be wonderful. Everyone have a great day. Good Shabbos. See you on Monday.